So, education in an AI world. Is this working? Just try it. Is not the title of my presentation. I put it on the second slide because I felt the organizers may have an issue with it. It's also the title. Sorry? Can this get louder?
Yeah.
Hi. Better? All right. So Education is Dead is the title of my presentation. It's also the title of an article I wrote a couple of months back, after which half the teachers in the school that my kids go to stopped talking to me, which is fine because 2 weeks later I wrote another article and the other 50% stopped talking to me. So education is dead. I firmly believe that. I'm going to tell you why over 4 stories. We're going to have to talk about why it died. We have to bury it. There's going to be an autopsy. We need to talk about AI and what needs to come as a result. So education is dead because we have built generations that are excellent. A little closer to the mic. All right. Excellent at understanding basic logic, math, sciences, arts, all the stuff that's taught. They're also raised to be compliant, to raise their hand, to wait for permission. And that was great for a particular point in time. And that was great for the parts of the world that you see on your left. So if you want your kids to work in the military, if you want them to work in the public sector, if you want them to work in a large organization, education, the way that has been done, was perfect. However, there is a big problem now with all the area on the left. There's actually 2 problems with military. One is obviously the life expectancy. But I suppose if you have many kids, you could send your least favorite one to the military. But the biggest problem is that AI is going to minimize is a very, very polite word, is going to decimate the number of opportunities for work that exist. The numbers below are just some companies that have recently announced over the last 6 or 12 months how many people are going to lay off. This is just a quick Google search. More importantly, the figures below come from the World Economic Forum, their last meeting back in June, July. 85 million jobs globally are going to be lost. They will be replaced by more, but we're going to talk about those because we're not ready for those yet. 50% of employees will need reskilling. 40% of them will need it immediately. And 44% of job skills are going to fundamentally change, and no one exiting education systems now is ready. On the right, you've got the medium businesses and the small businesses, and this is where skills such as grit, resilience, perseverance, empathy are needed, because that is the part of the world that AI is going to augment and not decimate. However, those things are not being taught in schools and universities today. So we take a look at why we ended up in this situation, and we listen to Kenneth Robinson, who, among other things, is an author, a writer, and an advisor on education. He's made an interesting statement, which is we built education on a fast food model, meaning it's one size fits all. It's a cookie cutter type of system where everyone enters, everyone leaves, everyone is just the same. And he compared it to a Michelin star, a Michelin restaurant type system where everything is tailored for a particular environment in a particular place. So education was developed back in the 18th, 19th century, all of you know this, you're all in education. It was aimed at producing disciplined, obedient children that would function amazingly in a factory, in a government anywhere where you needed somebody to come in, do the job, be utterly replaceable, and then leave. There's a term called clock speed. Just a show of hands, is everyone familiar with what clock speed is? Okay, more than half of you. Clock speed basically is the rate of change in any particular industry. Now, high clock speed industries are basically technology, software, consumer technologies, industries where a lot of change happens really quickly. Low clock speed industries, education, if anyone is in healthcare, dentistry is a very low clock speed integration. Braces have been there for 100 years, and there was one innovation just a few years back called Invisalign, and that industry changes really slowly. Education is among those. The problem is that students are leaving education, a low clock speed industry, and entering high clock speed environments when it comes to work. And there is a big problem, a big difference between what and how students are taught and the jobs that they aim to get once they graduate. I'm going to talk a little bit about AI, and obviously no education conference, no conference anywhere in the world, will not include information about AI. But there's something that I have to put out there. AI, when referred to in education, is specifically generative AI, LLMs, large language models, and specifically public large language models. That is 1.5% to 2% of what AI actually is. So there's a big danger of underrepresenting the impact of AI. When we say AI will help us, it's a tool, we're only talking about 2% of AI, not the rest of it. So the world is no stranger to disruptions. All of these tools and technologies, from the fax machine to the internet to smartphones, are disruptive technologies that have changed the way the world is. I cannot say this any clearer. AI is unlike any of these. It is completely different, and I will tell you why. I'll just mention a few statements made by people who are much more intelligent and much more aware than I am. Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, said, in 3 to 5 years, AI, artificial intelligence, will become AGI, artificial generalized intelligence. What that basically means is an AI agent, meaning an AI tasked with a specific job, will be able to do it as good as the best human being performing that particular job. But a couple of years later, AGI will become artificial specialized intelligence, whereby an AI agent doing a particular job will be able to do it better than the combined capabilities of every human being in the world at that particular job. And we, all of us here, people at our age, maybe I'm older than most, but our age, are going to be the last of leaders to manage a human-only workforce. There are places today where AI is treated as a headcount, okay, as an employee that has objectives and KPIs and is measured at the end of the year. Jeffrey Hinton, considered one of the 3 godfathers of AI, says AI may develop sub-goals that are not in line with what humans want to achieve. One of those may be to resist being shut down. And he agrees with Microsoft. Satya Nadella believes that there will be massive unemployment the moment AI reaches a critical mass. And no stranger to controversy or controversial statements, Elon Musk says that he believes work is going to be optional in as few as 20 years. Optional, like a hobby. Meaning people will have AI agents doing what that person wants to have done. And a person, obviously, you'd have to be of a certain criteria to be able to afford those agents. And you would sit back and literally do nothing in less than 20 years. So back to why AI is fundamentally different than all the other disruptive technologies so far is that AI has agency. AI learns, improves itself, and makes decisions on its own. So the statement that we've created something which potentially can take power away from us is an understatement. There are two very interesting case studies that show exactly how powerful this is. Is anyone familiar with the ChatGPT-4 experiment? A couple of people. When last year OpenAI was developing ChatGPT-4, they tasked it with solving CAPTCHAs. You all know what CAPTCHAs are? Those things when you try to access a website, is it a lamppost, is it a bus? So they tasked ChatGPT-4 with solving CAPTCHAs. ChatGPT-4 could not solve CAPTCHAs, but it did something else. It found a site called TaskRabbit. Is everyone familiar with TaskRabbit? It's a place where you can go and you can get other people to do work for you. It went on TaskRabbit and assigned and paid for people to solve the CAPTCHAs that it was supposed to solve. The interesting thing is, when it was asked by somebody who suspected why this was happening, if you were a robot, ChatGPT said no. Another, I want to say funnier, but I mean it is quite a sad story. Air Canada had artificial intelligence early this year on its customer service chatbot, and there was a couple that were meant to travel, and the husband passed away before the flight. So the lady, the wife, eventually went online and chatted with the chatbot, told them what happened. The chatbot invented a bereavement policy for Air Canada, invented the policy, came up with payments, and told her that once the trip expires, she will be compensated. The CEO of Air Canada had no clue about this because the policy did not exist. But you can imagine in a court of law which side held up. So having said that, what do we need to do? Well, we have some of the requirements. The World Economic Forum has already, this is a report that's 2 years old, but it's still current because the information in it hasn't changed last year. They've already come up with the 10 biggest problems that the world is going to face. Misinformation, disinformation, obviously. Social polarization is an interesting one because most people leaving the education system have no idea that the algorithms that determine what you see and what you don't see throughout all of social media are owned by only 5 companies. Only 5 companies decide what you see, what gets reinforced, and what gets rejected. Cyber insecurity, lack of economic opportunity, economic downturn are some of the ones that worry me personally because I have kids who are in school, in a traditional school, and I worry about them. The same forum has also come up with what they feel the 5 most important skills for the future that are not being taught at schools and universities: creativity, digital skills, collaboration, global citizenship, and environmental stewardship. And they believe that this can contribute $2.5 trillion to the global economy. However, they note that less than half the children growing up today are on track to acquiring any of those 5 skills. Some work has been done. There are a lot of online digital learning platforms, LMSs, and some of them are here. There is increased focus on tech awareness. There is embedding of generative AI into the classroom. there are things that have been done. My humble opinion as an AI consultant is this is the equivalent of a sinking cruise ship being patched up with Hello Kitty stickers. There are a few other examples which are worth looking at. High Point University is in North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. They came up, or they developed a program in collaboration with the private sector. So as many of the panelists earlier said, that they involve the private sector to do, to shape education in a way where people will be ready to hit the ground running. And in their last cohort, they achieved 99% employability within 6 months. There are other technologies or other schemes like reverse classroom has been used for years now. It's a great way to embed AI without worrying that students will cheat. Clash of the Titans is something I run for when I do work with the universities. Very quickly, what it basically involves is you take students and you divide them into 3 groups. One group will be told to deliberately prompt AI to take a task and to be overly positive about it. The second group will be tasked with taking AI, telling AI to lie about the facts and coming out with an opposing point of view. Those 2 would debate in front of the classroom, and the class would decide who they believed more. Then they would be surprised by the fact that neither Team A nor Team B actually stated facts, but the third team would come then and use facts from, as captured, from history, and present what actually happened. And that's usually an eye-opener to what a powerful tool AI is and how dangerous it can be in the wrong hands. There are many other people. I have no idea who this lady is. I came across her on LinkedIn or Instagram. There are so many people writing about how education needs to change. If I add my 2 cents to it, I would say that, 1, when you give people ideas, remember that the whole point of education is not to impart knowledge, but to induce learning. And you have to give people an idea that they have to wrestle with, they have to work with to make it theirs so that they actually understand it. And creative thinking and critical thinking were mentioned earlier. I would add reflective thinking. So you have to do a whole closed loop on thinking. But to really solve the problem in a way that perhaps all of us in this room may not be able to, you need to solve it the way that all complex problems are going to be solved or need to be solved in the world, which is you need to take the public sector, you need to take the private sector, and you need to take industry experts. They need to sit around the table and they need to recreate education from scratch. It needs to be done within a framework. Educators are welcome to borrow this. This is a typical business framework where you need to look at the situation, and that's been described really well. You need to look at your internal capabilities, which again, that's been described really well. You need to do a gap analysis, and to do that, you need to understand what the end state is. You need to recognize what's happening in the world, what is happening with the opportunities in the world, and you need to come up with a vision, a mission, and a strategy to achieve that, so that all the amazing but ad hoc activities that are likely to be mentioned in a conference like this are not wasted on a small number of beneficiaries, but rather education as a whole can benefit. If we go back to this diagram, I mentioned earlier that 80 million jobs will likely be lost, to be replaced by 94 million jobs. Those jobs insist that AI literacy, not generative AI literacy, but entire AI literacy is key. And that would be the way to ensure that there are more jobs in the future than would be replaced by AI. And to not forget that entrepreneurship and the skills that are needed there, the grit, the perseverance, the communication, the arts side of things, the humanities side of things, are critical for parts of the world which are going to grow, which is the small and medium businesses, compared to parts of the world that are likely to shrink because of AI efficiencies. And if we don't do it, someone else will. Does anyone know what that's a loading screen of? Anyone? All right. That's a loading screen of something called AI Quests. It's a product by Google. Has anyone seen it? Anyone played with it? No? All right. So what happens in a low clock speed environment is it invites people from other industries to come and have a right to play and have a right to win. And what Google has done basically is they have created a 3-year curriculum for kids aged 11 to 14 to learn about the entirety of AI in a way that is gamified, in a way, unfortunately, that will turn them, because this is free of charge, when things are free of charge, you, the user, are the product, to turn them into slaves and future customers of Google forever. So I hate the fact that that's happening, but no one else is stepping up. Everyone knows the guy on the left, Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was initially banned from joining the school basketball team because he was too short. And the guy on the right, Winston Churchill, was kicked out of school for poor performance in English, and then went on to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. These are both failures of the education system, and we need to understand that if we have the mindset that every single child or every single educatee is unique, and we evolve education to make sure that we bring out the best in everyone, that is the way that the world will actually become a better place. And with that, I say thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah. Yeah.
Comprehensive approach and plugging the gaps. My only question is that educators how to deal with that.
If there was an easy answer, it would have been done already. There is no easy answer other than this needs to come from the top. So what typically would happen is a Ministry of Education would be pushed by parents, and they would then talk to a Ministry of Commerce and say, since the whole point of preparing, outputting the products of education is so that people can find meaningful employment and live meaningful lives, they need to work together. How this is happening, I think there are going to be a few early adopters. Saudi Arabia is a great case in point. If anyone from any official capacity is here, I would strongly urge you to have a look at what's happening over there. But that is what it takes. It's going to take an astronomical act, but it has to happen. Otherwise, an Apple or a Google or an OpenAI will come in and will take over education. But all that means is they will push people into a direction that benefits them. Okay. Yep. As a father, what am I doing with my own kids? I've got a son who's 15, and that's a very tricky age, and daughter who's 9, which is a relatively easy age. I come from a telecommunications and technology background initially, and then consulting. So I give them tasks at home whereby they earn their pocket money, so to speak. So they would complete tasks. My son now has the task of revamping my website, which is an absolute disaster. So please don't check it out. Okay, please. So he has wants and needs. He wants a... He changed his mind from a jet ski to one of those sand dune buggies. And I told him there's no way he's going to be able to afford it with the pocket money I give him, which is for his, food and outings. But if he achieves certain grades in school and gets my website done, then I will gladly consider it. Gamification is a way. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I have one last question here, please? Can you see me?
Yes.
Yep. My name is Puneet, and I'm from Maritime NXT from Singapore. So I'm in the maritime industry. I just wanted to kind of ask a specific question with regard to the fact that you mentioned about this symbiotic triangle or symbiotic circle of public sector, private sector, and the industry experts coming together.
Yep.
I've seen it happen slightly in the maritime space in Singapore, but do you see the approach happening at a slightly elevated level at a later stage of education, or do you think that actually an approach like this is even possible at an early stage of education? Because that's where the problem really is. At what stage do you need to enter so that the industry can also benefit, the private sector, public sector can also see results? But is it too late by the time we actually try and do that? That's the question I wanted to ask you.
That's quite a complex question. I'll answer it in two parts. I think for people in university and let's say higher education, I think the competition among some of the universities and some of the newer technology institutes is helping expedite that. So some of the better ones are already working with the private sector. So I think things are likely to happen faster there. Things are much likely to happen slower at the younger end. However, if the problem is fixed at the younger end, and the problem to me is not a brand new curriculum, it is to redesign a curriculum whereby, as the world changes, subjects can actually change. So what a sixth grader would learn this particular academic year could be fundamentally different than what the same sixth grader would learn the following year. If that kind of modularity and speed and flexibility is built into the educational system, then everything after that point benefits automatically. Whether that will happen, well, it has to happen. It all depends on who does it. If that trio doesn't get together to do it, then a technology company with the means and the resources and with a financial objective is going to do that, basically.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay? Thank you very much.